What we're beginning to understand from education and science is that people never get something the first time it's said, or very rarely. So Tony Buzan and some of the scientists he's worked with have begun to map just what it takes in order to review and recall for things to actually drop in and become part of people's long-term memory. And what we know now is that it takes at least 5 reviews and recalls and repetitions for it to fall in and become useful information that people can draw out of their brain when they need. So how do you get that built into your session? Well, you need to say it once and talk it through once. But to simply recall it, all you need to do is, halfway through the session, ask a question that makes people go and think about it, draw it back out of their memory, and that's them already done one review. You might want to encourage them with a quiz at the end. There's another review. And if they go away and spend a little bit of time reviewing and recalling for themselves, at least twice when they leave, then they've done enough to actually make it click and drop into their long-term memory for permanent use. There's a saying, just because you're making a noise in my direction, it doesn't mean we're communicating. Often people are talking to you in the room, in a facilitation, giving you a piece of information, but how much are we really listening? Well, from my point of view, active listening is the key skill of any trainer, any facilitator, any presenter. And what is active listening? Well, there's lots of different types of listening. There's very cosmetic listening. That's where someone's speaking to you and you nod and you say, yeah, but actually you're thinking about what you're going to get at Tesco. There's conversational listening, where you might be sitting having a coffee with a friend in a cafe, and you're hearing most of what's been said and you're empathising and you're picking up most of what's said. And then there's what we call active listening. And actually that's not just sitting being passive, it's actually listening, summarising what that person said, asking a further question that draws out more, and then a final summary to make sure that you can check understanding. So let's go through those steps again of real active listening. Someone in the room has made a comment about something around the work you're doing. Hear it, repeat it back, summarise it to them. Ask them another question, because it may not be clear to the whole group. What might the group need to understand from that comment? Let them answer, hear that, and then do a final summary. What that does for you is lets people know in the room that you really do hear them. Something key to be aware of throughout the session is to bring about a balance of advocacy and inquiry. So what's that? What are these words? Well, advocacy is where we allow people the chance to really give their point of view, to state what it is they think at this moment in time. You're also allowed to do that too as a trainer. State your point of view. Some of your slides are going to be very much giving AMEC's point of view or someone else's point of view. Those are always needed in the room. But what we also need in the room is a balance of inquiry. And with inquiry, we're asking questions to learn more, to go deeper, to get more understanding, so that points of view can actually change. People can change their mind. So we do this simply by encouraging people to state their case, state their point of view, to ask what they think about something. And very simply, to draw out inquiry, we say, what more could we understand about this topic? What else have you got as understandings that you've brought from somewhere else? Who else has a different point of view on this? So look to balance out the room with points of view and questions that invite more depth and more understanding. We're going to put in your toolbox now a tool called Focused Conversations. And it's a very, very simple circular tool that helps you plan in your mind the questions that help people talk through a topic. It starts with very much data questions. What happened? What did you see? What did you notice? What's been key for you? It then moves to gut reaction questions. What did you like about this? What did you dislike about it? Where did it capture you? Where did it bring in your gut reactions? It then moves on to what's significant or what was important or what you might be learning. So questions around, where does this link to other learning? What does it mean to you? What have you gotten from that? And then finally it moves to action. Next steps. What are you going to do with this when you leave? What next steps are you going to make with this? It's actually a slowed down version of our natural thinking process, and that's where it comes from. But the key to it is it helps you think up and build questions around topics that you can plan beforehand and just have them either on a note card beside you, or if you can remember them, you simply just draw them out of your memory. To draw together the tools of active listening, advocacy and inquiry, and the focused conversation tool, we've built a question bank that will be available online to you. The purpose of that is to give you a selection of pre-written questions that you can choose from to make the best flow in your training or your facilitation. So go find that tool and start planning the questions you're going to ask. It will really help your delivery. Trainers and facilitators actively intervene in the group work throughout the whole session. The key reason is to keep things on purpose. Are we still following and doing the work we're meant to be doing? And the other is to summarise and make sure that people understand things that are being said. The trainer should do this in service of making sure that they are continuing the group learning. Trainers should never intervene just because they need their voice to be heard. So make sure that when you intervene, it's in service of the purpose of the day or to help the group's learning. And that will make you a great trainer and facilitator. So team dynamics. We're going to look at a model by a man called Tuckman, who studied thousands of teams and noticed that they went through very consistent stages. The first stage is forming, where the group are just getting together. They're quite polite at this time. They tend not to be disagreeing too strongly with one another, and they're kind of trying to get the measure of one another, and maybe the trainer too. Then they slip into what we call storming, or we sometimes call it spinning, where they start to disagree, they start to take very strong positions, they maybe start to argue, shout. It can get quite aggressive at that time. The third stage is norming. Norming is where people are beginning to feel comfortable with giving different points of view without having to be aggressive or pushy or difficult with it. And finally, Tuckman noticed that the team begins to perform, and that's the fourth stage. But the one that trainers and facilitators find the most difficult is the one called spinning or storming. And that's a time where you do need to intervene. You need to be part of things. And once you've noticed that an argument is becoming locked, what you need to say at that point to the group is, are we spinning here? It's a very simple question. You don't need to be accusing about it. And the main thing is that you need to ask this question with your own shoulders down, not hunched up and ready to go in for the fight. So, are we spinning here? The group will maybe agree with you, okay? Then ask, why are we spinning? What's happened? Let them answer. And then say, so what do we need to do now to get out of spinning? And let them answer that too. And then you can also add, if this happens again in the future, what should we do then? And let them tell you that answer too. So the key questions are, with your shoulders down, without accusation in your voice, are we spinning here? The next one is, why are we spinning? What's going on? The third question is, what do we need to do about it now? And the fourth, if you wish it, what do we do if it happens again? And it's one of the key tools to help your team get out of spinning or storming and moving on to norming and performing. A very helpful, useful little piece. As a trainer of trainers, I'm often asked, how do you handle it when people get difficult in the room? So what we're going to do is put in a couple of question processes for you to use when you notice that something is happening in the room that is not helpful to the group. So the first one is around, what do you do when someone is behaving in a way that doesn't seem appropriate? Well, the first thing is, don't go into judging yourself. Keep your shoulders down and keep your tone neutral, but you do need to address the person. So John, I'm noticing that what you're doing is speaking to George next to you the whole time while Linda is trying to explain her point of view. And let it land. Then you can say, I'm concerned that if you continue to do that, you might miss some of Linda's really good ideas. Can we ask you to just listen up for a while? So that's the first one. What you might notice as well is that people aren't making a noise, but their body language is telling you that they're just not getting something. So the way to deal with that is to actually draw attention to them yourself. You can say, John, I'm noticing that your brows are really furrowed. I'm concerned that maybe I'm saying something that's not working for you. What's happening? And let John explain. So that you're not allowing things to go unchecked or unworked with as the day progresses. But the key thing is to stay in inquiry in your head, not judge. You're asking questions to gain understanding, and hopefully that person will redirect their own behaviour. Those are a couple of tips to help.